any injury within the fight game is very consequential to you and your abilities to fight. I personally believe Jon Jones would not be the same. But right now, Jon Jones is pound for pound the greatest. I don't know how Islam Makhachev is the pound for pound fighter.
Go check out our rankings on that.
They should just start having me and Phoenix do the rankings. Charles Oliveira has 2 losses. He's coming off 2 losses. Will he be the same dominant Charles Oliveira?
He will.
Personally, I don't think so.
No. UFC 309 goes down this Saturday night, and man, do we have a fight. Jon Jones is finally back after being off for 18 months, and he's taking on arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time in Stipe Miocic. But Priest, before we get into this video, I just got to say, last year when we went to Madison Square Garden and saw UFC 295, it was unbelievable.
Yeah. Hands
unbelievable.
Down. One of the greatest sporting events I've ever been to during a UFC fight has to be Madison Square Garden. Not only because Diego Lopez beat Pat Sabatini, our brother, but that co-main event fight between Tom Aspinall was absolutely insane. Granted, because Stipe Miocic and Jon Jones were supposed to fight on that card, but an injury happened, and now we get the fight we've been waiting for.
And this is where we lead us today. In the main event, you have Jon Jones taking on Stipe Miocic. And man, there's a lot of questions surrounding this fight that you have to take in consideration this Saturday night. And I think first things first, Jon Jones' injury. Is he back? Granted, he has over a year. I think by the time he fights, it will be over a year of recovery time for that torn pec that he suffered just a few weeks shy of his main event last year against Stipe Miocic. So I just got to say, like, is he going to be the same with his injury?
Gosh, this is so hard because any injury within the fight game is very consequential to you and your abilities to fight. Very rarely you see guys come back from injuries, torn pecs, broken legs, broken arms, and they are the same. So, for instance, look at Conor McGregor right now. Conor McGregor hasn't fought in a whole year, more than
3 years.
3 years. But I personally believe Jon Jones will not be the same. He will not be the same fighter as he was. No matter what injury you sustain, there's always going to be something there. So, granted, Jon Jones doesn't need a strike. He just can take Stipe down just like I did against Cyril Gane. Too easy. But he would not be the same personally.
I think any fighter that steps into the octagon, they're never going to be 100%. Jon Jones this Saturday night is not going to be 100%. Stipe Miocic this Saturday night will not be 100%. But what makes the difference in this fight is Jon Jones is a pound-for-pound GOAT. He is. You cannot deny him that he is not the greatest fighter on earth. And if you locked him in a room with every single fighter in the UFC, he would come out. And I think that's just a different mentality that Jon Jones is born with. And for people to achieve that high of just celebrityness and just to be at the pinnacle and the top of a sport for so long as Jon Jones has, think about it. Jon Jones is 36 now. He's older. He became champion at 23 years old. You're talking about 13 years of dominance. I know there's been some questionable split decisions that people thought that he lost, but he still won. He's still undefeated. His only loss is going to be negated because of this new rule change. So I think that's what's going to separate him from this fight in Stipe. And I think Stipe coming in, there's always going to be that mental battle with Jon Jones. Because it is Jon Jones that you're standing across the octagon from with. And you saw that with Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane was dominant. He was dominant in his reign. Arguably could have won against Francis Ngannou if he didn't roll for that heel hook. But when you're fighting Jon Jones, you're looking at the GOAT. You're looking at the pound-for-pound fighter. And that's a hard mental battle to get through.
Yeah. I mean, hands down, Jon Jones is the greatest UFC fighter of all time. But, however, there are people that are going to surpass Jon Jones in the sport, I believe. Granted, Jon Jones is young. He's had the hype. He's been at 2 different weight classes. He's been champion. He's been in it since he was young. Ilia Topuria is on his way to becoming that. Whenever you beat legend after superstar, after legend after superstar, you will eventually become a legend. Just like how Dana White said. So, right now, Jon Jones is pound for pound the greatest. I don't know how Islam Makhachev is the pound for pound fighter.
Go check out our rankings on that.
Go check out our rankings. Our official rankings are by far the best rankings that anyone can put together. They should just start having me and Phoenix do these rankings.
We just need to be the media rankings because honestly, I truly believe Jon Jones is at number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2 has to be Alex Pereira.
Yes.
I mean,
No
to see
question.
what he's done this year just alone, let alone beat Izzy in his prime, took his belt, went up to 205. What he's done for the sport is insane. Number 3, Ilia Topuria. Knocks out Max Holloway, knocks out Alex Volkanovski. And number 4, I would put Islam because he has defended the belt against Dustin Poirier. He beat a Charles Oliveira who was not beatable at that time, has beat Volkanovski twice when he was pound for pound. And number 5, Zhang Weili. Pretty easy, pretty simple. Hire us as the UFC ranking, but I think in this fight, the biggest thing that has to work for Jon Jones is his grappling. He's going to have to take it to the mat because Stipe is willing to sit there and trade with you in the pocket. He will go out on his shield like he did against DC. But in the second fight with DC, you saw it. He was willing to stand and trade and work the body. So I think in this fight, how it's going to play out, Jon Jones has got to get it to the mat. And if not, you could see a really close fight for 5 rounds.
I don't think Jon Jones has to get it just to the mat. That's not what he has to do. He can stand there and trade with Stipe. He has hands. He's been in the pocket.
But the question is, does he have the same hands that he had at light heavyweight? He was faster. He was quicker. He was more lengthy. But at this size, he's not as big. Granted, Stipe is not a big heavyweight either. They're both going to come in about 240, 235, that range.
Well, look at Jon Jones' first fight when he did fight Cyril Gane. He looked slow with his hands. He even came out and said, yeah, I felt slow. I felt off. But he still got the job done. And that makes him, pound for pound, the greatest fighter in the world. My honest fight prediction, though, Stipe Miocic, the greatest heavyweight of all time. You can't deny it. Yes, he fought Francis Ngannou, and he got caught. Granted, that was a horrible mistake that Stipe Miocic did. He got rocked, and he actually landed that punch against Francis Ngannou. He thought he rocked him. He went in with the blitz, and then boom, that's what happened. Stipe has to fight smart in this fight. He has to do what he did against DC the third time they fought back at the Honda Center. The second time they fought back at the Honda Center at UFC 241. Stick to your jab and stick to the calf kicks and invest in the body. That ultimately will dictate this fight, and you will beat Jon Jones.
The biggest question is the layoff, though. It's what we said at the top, is how is Stipe going to do 3 years removed from his last fight? How's Jon Jones going to do 18 months, from his last fight? How is that going to match up in this fight? I think Jon Jones is going to do it. I think it's going to be a great fight, highly competitive fight. I think it's going to be one of the closest, one of the toughest fights for Jon Jones in his career, but it is Jon Jones, so how could you deny him? But on the flip side, you got another lengthy layoff in the co-main event. Michael Chandler is finally back after his hiatus with Conor McGregor, doing the Ultimate Fighter show, doing the whole camp in the lead up to an international fight week that did not take place due to Conor McGregor's injury. And he's back taking on Charles Oliveira, the former champion. And what is to say, the number 1 contender fight in the lightweight division?
Yeah, hands down. I mean, yes, the winner of this fight is next in line for that UFC lightweight champion after Arman Tsarukyan fights Islam Makhachev. Granted, Charles Oliveira has 2 losses. He's coming off 2 losses. Will he be the same dominant Charles Oliveira?
He will.
Personally, I don't think so.
No. Really?
Charles Oliveira will not be the same. I believe we will see we will see a smart Michael Chandler in this fight. We will see one that's poised. He's been leading us up to every step of the way with his training videos. Granted, the dude looks like he's a beast. He is shredded. He is in ultimate peak performance shape, and he said that he will be a smart Michael Chandler in this fight, which adrenaline dumps are crazy. But I believe he smokes him.
I mean, Charles Oliveira, you got to look at the man. The man lost to Islam Makhachev, one of the best fighters in the world. Granted, I think in a second fight, you're going to see a totally different fight. You're going to see an Oliveira that's locked in, that's not scared of the hype that comes with Islam and Khabib and that camp. Then he goes on to fight Arman Tsarukyan, who arguably won against Islam Makhachev in their first fight. Charles Oliveira is still here. He's still one of the best fighters in the division. And I think if you line up Charles Oliveira with every single fighter in the lightweight division, he has a very good shot to win. He already beat Michael Chandler. That's a mental battle in itself. Can Michael Chandler put that aside? He's went 3 times with Patricky Pitbull and Bellator, so he's not new to rematches. But this is the UFC. You got UFC gold on the line, so how's Michael Chandler going to respond to that? And I think Charles Oliveira has been that. He's had UFC gold, multiple title defenses, and I think that's going to play a big part in this fight.
No.
I'm just saying.
Charles Oliveira has 2 losses. 2 bad losses.
Michael Chandler's off 2 losses too.
That Arman Tsarukyan loss could be very detrimental.
I mean, you're talking about a loss to Arman Tsarukyan. 8 number 1 was a split decision. Number 2, he caught him in 2 deep submissions that would put out 99% of the division. And it's Arman Tsarukyan. He's fighting for the title next.
Did he win?
You can't tell me in the next fight with Charles Oliveira that Arman Tsarukyan is definitely going to win.
Did he win though?
Doesn't matter. It's a split decision. It was a good fight.
It doesn't matter. It still counts as a loss. Michael Chandler made way too many mistakes in that first fight. It was his very first title defense. Give him a break. Or his very first title chance. Give him a break. He needs to be poised. It's that simple, man. Michael Chandler, if you want to win this fight, don't get into a firefight.
It's Michael Chandler, though. He's willing to throw it all out there all the time.
Imagine if Michael Chandler had an IQ of Jon Jones. He might be the greatest fighter in the world, but he loves putting it on his fans. Can't complain him. He's been getting multiple bonuses, but at this given moment of both of their careers, Chandler hasn't got hit as much. Oliveira went through a grueling, hard camp against Arman Tsarukyan, lost that fight. He's coming back. Michael Chandler was about ready to fight the sports icon, pulls out because Connor's injured. Now he has an opportunity to get the redemption. And the redemption story is always different.
The last thing I'll say about this is activity. And that's just this whole card. You got Jon Jones who's been out. Stipe has been out. Michael Chandler that's been out. The only one that hasn't been out is Charles Oliveira. And I know a lot of people like Dominic Cruz out there like to say ring rust isn't a thing, but it truly is a thing. Your timing is off. Your speed is off. That adrenaline dump that you have in a fight, you're not used to that. And Charles Oliveira has been active. He just fought in April. He's back in November, and I think that's going to also make the biggest difference in this fight. Not saying Michael Chandler can't win, because I think Michael Chandler has a good shot to touch gold within the next year to year and a half. For sure. But in this moment, in this fight, in this rematch, I think the biggest thing that's going to make the biggest difference is going to be activity, and it is going to show. But let us know in the comments who you guys got. Are you guys taking Oliveira or Chandler? And in the main event, Jon Jones or Stipe Miocic, and he is back ready to rock.